What's happening? Welcome into Indianapolis, Indiana, the site of the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine. I'm going to save you the normal bluster that I start off the top with because Ran Carthon, Titans GM, just sat down. What's happening?
What's up, man? How we doing?
We're doing good.
I'm trying not to bob to the music that's playing. I don't know if the people out there can hear them.
That's okay. Oh, yeah, they absolutely hear the music. That's a vibe. That's okay.
Yeah, we're jamming right now.
You get down with a little mace?
Funny story, when I was training for the Combine in 2004, I had the same trainer as Mace.
You're kidding.
And so he would come in the gym.
You like working out together, stuff like that?
Well, he would come and be in the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he was a cool dude. This was when he had left hip-hop and became Pastor Mace.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to know this Mace.
Not quite?
Not quite.
Anyway. Well, it's definitely an exciting time of year for you guys, as is typically the custom. How much has it changed just between, training for the Combine, being able to participate as a player yourself before the opportunity that you had in the league and what it's become now, what the league has made it now?
I think, for one, these kids are more informed than we were.
Oh, yeah?
Back in – damn, I sound like an old head. Back in my day –
well, you got a little gray in a beard. That's all right being an old head.
That's called stress. Back in my day, when you showed up here, you did as much as possible. You know what I mean? And because this was your one opportunity to be in front of all 32 teams, and you did everything because you wanted to just put your best foot forward. I know myself at that time, for whatever reason, it felt like the night before Pro Day in Gainesville, back in our day, it rained, and we didn't have an indoor facility. So you wanted to do as much as possible here just in case you were running on a wet surface or doing everything on a wet surface in Gainesville. But, this is an exciting time. These kids have put in a lot of work to get here. It was fun last night sitting in the interview room, getting to meet these kids, getting to see their personalities, get to challenge them a little bit, see how they respond to certain things.
A little high heat?
Well, it wasn't really high heat, but, sometimes a guy will answer a question and you see the opportunity to take it here, and test them a little bit and kind of see where they would want to go with it. But, these kids are well-trained. But this part of the process is really fun.
Well, it's definitely a fun time, not coming off the most successful season that this franchise has had, but certainly as far as building this thing up to the way that you guys envision it between you and Callahan and the rest of your guys' staff. So as you kind of enter in this, and obviously it's been an ongoing process since the season ended and probably before the season ended, what kind of excites you most about getting this thing to the place that you envision?
Man, this coaching staff.
Yeah.
This coaching staff it's juice, it's energy, and it's kind of just all throughout the building. And just the way we're going to marry, the coaching staff and the scouting staff, and the importance of marrying those two. And then we think and we feel that once those players see our connection, then it's going to create that connection in the locker room as well. It's cool to be, I worked with Denard, 4 years in St. Louis. Also worked with Frank Bush, who I have, the utmost respect for. It's cool to just talk about those two guys specifically. Like, both of those guys have scouting backgrounds, right? So they respect the process. They've done it. Denard was a pro scout, and, Frank was an area scout. They both became, highly successful coaches. And so it's they understand the process, they understand what it is, and like I said, to be able to sit in that room last week and hear these guys talk about their positions and the level of detail and not only the level of detail, but having, hey, these are the prototypes that are playing in the NFL. These are the prototypes. But then to hear them follow up with things like, yeah, it's easy to say, like, hey, as an edge guy, we want a bunch of Myles Garretts. You know what I mean? Like, that's not realistic. But them being able to say,
it'd be lovely.
Oh, it would be phenomenal. You know what I mean? I just had to catch myself. I almost said something else. But
it's all right. We got a dump button. Kirby cusses every once in a while. We got to play it safe.
But, to not only hear them say, like, hey, we would love to have these type of guys, but understand that we know God only made so many. So here's how we can supplement if we don't have. You know what I mean? So you have checks and balances it's like I said, it's easy to go out on the road and grade these highly touted guys, but hey, where are the true value guys that we can add, that we can plug and play, and we can maximize who they are?
Titans General Manager Ran Carthon hanging out here with us at the Scouting Combine. So you mentioned the coaching staff, and in particular Denard Wilson. It was really cool to be a part of their press conferences and to hear him kind of describe your all's come up and the conversations that you would have when you were with the Rams, and how that kind of started to form your relationship, or form the foundation of your relationship.
Yeah, man. Denard is one of the people I give credit to me getting my first job. In the National Football League, we both were finalists. We were the 2 finalists for the pro scouting job in Atlanta in 2008. And lucky for me, he had another opportunity in Chicago, and he took that opportunity over coming to Atlanta. And him leaving and taking a job in Chicago made me the only guy in Atlanta and allowed my career to get started.
For you guys, cap space is obviously a big talking point. You addressed it in your podium availability. By the way, nobody's shouting over each other today. It's pretty.
I was proud of
pretty docile. Every once in a while, you just got to talk to us like children, and then we'll get in line. It's a process for sure. I don't know how coachable as a group we are, but we'll probably find out here in the next couple of months.
Character guys.
Something depends on who you ask. But when the cap number was announced, 255.4. How close to the actual figure, or how close were you guys in preparing and stuff like that to what that figure was going to be? Because it sounded like a lot of teams were caught off guard by how much it went up by $30 million.
No, we were very, very close. We were very close. Myself, Vin, and Chad, A-Rob, we had the conversation probably 4 days prior. And we put our projection, and even looking at the projection we put was like, that might be a little high.
Yeah.
And then I'll say this much: we were single digits, so we weren't $30 million off or anything like that. We were single digits away, which I was like, damn, we were, pretty close. And so it's a gift and a curse, because it puts us in an even better position, but the teams that were a lot further away from us, they're now a little closer.
Yeah, the marketplace is more open for everybody.
So it puts them well positioned. But, like I said, we have to exercise patience, right? And I think I kind of talked about it somewhere. I can't remember. It's like when we were young and you get money from the tooth fairy, and you got the money in your pocket, and you go to the store and you want to try to buy everything that's in the store. And so my parents would say the money is burning a hole in your pocket, and so you have to resist that temptation because, again, you want to be well-positioned, in what we call cap casualties. When some of these, veteran guys become free, and you want to be well-positioned to bring in some of those guys as well later in the process. And so you have to resist that urge of going out and spending too soon. Hopefully we're past the injury bug here. Of guys, but that kind of carries over into the season. You want to be well positioned to have operating costs in case you have to take on some of those placing guys on IR, having some of those salaries, and bringing guys in. You want to be well positioned to have those things. And last year we kind of consistently were in the top 5 in available cap space, so we want to kind of be in that place forever moving forward.
Now, you mentioned injuries. That's something that fans are very, very sensitive to, because it's been hell here for the last couple of years. Absolutely. So as you guys, I know you mentioned that you were going to address the strength and conditioning coach after you got back, or hone in more on it as a staff. What I guess is the thinking moving forward, though, as to how you guys are going to handle your strength and conditioning program, versus not necessarily asking you to do a comparison based on what existed there previously, but I guess what is the thought process for fans moving forward, because that's one of the biggest sticking points that it seems that they have.
Yeah, so that was a talking point for us in the interview process. Throughout the interview process, that was one of our top questions. And how do you structure practice during the week? How do you structure training camp? And that was one of the things that stood out with talking to Cali and their plan. If you look at where Cincinnati's been, they've been one of the better teams. Now again, you have freakish things happening. Their starting quarterback goes down last year, but we want to provide the infrastructure for how we practice to mirror with how we train. You know what I mean? And being able to maximize the workload while not overdoing it. And so trust me, we're very sensitive to that, and eventually get to the point where we have this athletic performance model that we're building, and that's how we're approaching things moving forward, and hence why we're taking our time with the strength coach hire, because those are places that we want to go, moving forward. But we have to make sure we have the right people in place in order to, employ that infrastructure.
Last press conference that you gave after Mike got let go, you had mentioned, among a variety of different things, the idea of wanting to connect with the fan base more, because we hadn't, not that we need to talk to you all the time, it's not normal, but we hadn't talked to you since training camp, and that the idea that you wanted to kind of engage more with the fans. How I guess, do you plan to do that?
Well, I mean, just making myself available, and I think I've always been available. It's just the opportunity didn't really present itself. And again, I've always came from the school of thought that the fall and the season is about the players and the coaches. And again, that may not be the right approach. But at the same time, like I don't want people to feel like I'm hiding.
Right.
I'm not that type of person. Whether good or bad, I'm willing to stand out front. With the guys. But I just give the fans more opportunity to get to know me, get to know who I am as a person, and just understand that this title doesn't define me, of who I am, and that I'm always working for them. You know what I mean? And I take a lot of pride in trying to build something that not only the city of Nashville but the state of Tennessee, and the whole Southeast region can be proud of.
That can't be easy to do, though. It's to take that kind of a backseat role, especially in a season like that where you're not having the level of success where you're reading reports of varying degrees, whether you want to call them reports, whether you want to call them rumors, a lot of pot shots out there, and just between you and I and nobody else listening, like I thought you handled that very gracefully in ways that many people might not have.
No, that's who I am. It is what it is. I always say that you don't have to defend the truth. You know what I mean? And so 1 + 1 is going to always equal 2. I'm not going to argue with you if you say it's 3, because in my book it's 2. You know what I mean? So it's I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, like, some of the stuff that I heard, does get a little irritating, especially, knowing that I don't know where it's coming from, and to me it's completely made up. However, but that's a part of it. And I know the best remedy to all that is winning football games. And so, and that's where my focus has always been. How can we get better? I remember we lost the Super Bowl in 2019, and the first thing I did was I went back to the bus. I was on the bus by myself for 2 hours before we left, and just went through my notes of how we can be better, moving forward. So instead of sitting in that moment, and sulking, it's like, all right, what's the plan? How can we be better so we don't have to feel like this moving forward?
I got to let you go. Kirby's been giving me the wrap it up sign for way too long now.
Yeah,
but
he's mad at us. Sorry, Kirby.
This Eastside Golf you got on. You got to let the people know.
Yeah, man. A little something. I'm trying to get into the golf game. Time won't allow me. But I have a bunch of friends around me that they typically plan my birthday trip around them being able to go play at all the major golf courses.
But you don't play?
I hadn't played up until that point. I did a really nice job of driving a cart and smoking cigars and having a drink. But at some point, I'm going to get out and start swinging the sticks.
Well, the process of getting better doesn't start at the Combine. The Combine, obviously, a huge part of it. Rand, I know you're busy. I appreciate you always sitting down with us.
Absolutely, no problem.
That's Titans GM Ran Carthon. Head coach Brian Callahan. He's next. Welcome back here at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. Appreciate Ran Carthon sitting down with us. Brian Callahan here in just about 9 minutes. Lucas and Jackson are back there making it go. Lucas, I thought for sure you were going to interrupt me when I said that we were going to do this with no interruptions with Ran Carthon. Lucas naturally does not have his headset on yet, apparently. What's he doing back there, Jackson?
So you're to the point where you are anticipating my interruptions when you're talking about having no interruptions?
Yeah. Isn't that how we plan the bit? Isn't that the thing?
The thing is coming later.
Well, let's just make sure it's safe for work. Do you have any FOMO yet about not being on the Combine trip with Kirby, Allen Kirby, and myself?
A little bit of FOMO. I'm very torn. I'm torn between being very happy to be back here and let you guys scurry around and talk to 21-year-olds, and also feeling like I'm missing out on 2 a.m. Kirby stories at Prime 47.
Well, you should be here, dude. You could have rode with me. I mean, there's not really a pull-out in my room, but, hell, we could have made an arrangement.
Oh, my
somehow.
God, could you imagine if the two of you had to share a room?
Hey, we used to double up all the time.
Under no circumstances am I doubling up with anybody.
We'll just make a pillow wall. It'll be all right.
A pillow wall.
We could have made it happen.
Oh, God bless. Yeah, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Zone TV, active and waiting for you guys to watch the show. Chime in as you like with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We got a bunch of fun people who are going to stop by. Lucas, did you listen to the press conferences for both of the GM and the head coach before we got on the air here? Did you learn anything in particular that you think we need to address before we take a quick break for Callahan?
Obviously, questions about Derrick Henry posed to Ran Carthon. He talked a lot about Tyjae Spears. It's clear that the Titans love Tyjae Spears, and it's hard not to.
Made of the right bleep.
Made of the right bleep, yes. Thankful he said that at the podium and not here on the radio show. But
no, I would have loved for him to say that on the radio show. Are you kidding me?
It does feel like the Titans, and we could have said this, are invested in Tyjae Spears as their lead back moving forward, regardless of what happens with Derrick Henry.
He was general about it. You know, don't make in-house business public has been the policy for as long as there's been head coaches of the Tennessee Titans. They don't really. No, I don't think anybody's out here actively discussing a player's pending free agent's contract situation, or at least willingly doing so. But they kept it pretty generic at the podium about Derrick. Just kind of, we had a good talk with him on the way out the door. Had a good talk with his representation. We'll revisit those things when the time comes, but right now it's just kind of, he's going to hit the open market, which we all knew because Callahan said that a couple of weeks ago. But for this, Lucas, coming away from the sidebar, we did sidebar with both of them beyond just the podium for the local media, local folks only. And we'll talk to Callahan about this. I really do get the feeling that a wide receiver at 7 is very, very much in play. I also get the feeling that they're very content to stay at 7 and select because they know they're going to be able to get a premium player there. But the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell discussion, I think, is a very, very real one, even though it seems like the most obvious thing to just take a tackle and be done with it.
So a little bit from Brian Callahan, and I know he'll be coming up here in a few minutes, on what this team has kind of been missing and talking about that element of explosiveness and speed. Do you feel like we have an elevated degree of confidence that will actually be addressed this offseason as opposed to last year when Vrabel said we need speed, rarely are we the faster team out there, and then the Titans did nothing to achieve that?
No, what do you mean? Colton Dowell's not fast?
Faster than me.
We really should have sent Bert out there to do that Nashville Cats workout. When we come back, head coach Brian Callahan will sit down with us. We'll talk to him about what the first month on the job has looked like and all the different things that you guys want to hear answered. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Head coach of the Titans, he's next. don't know about running in circles. Certainly feels like time is a flat circle at the Combine in Indianapolis. A little bit of Groundhog Day vibes, though morale is high on day one. I don't know what I'm concerned, just generally, about what it's going to look like up here for us after tonight, boys, because I'm going to put myself in a very, very unstable, emotionally fragile situation. Kirby's thinking about going with me to Bloomington to watch the Indiana-Wisconsin game tonight, and I don't know what to expect from all of this other than I'm probably going to be in a very, very bad mood tomorrow morning.
Well, if they had a basketball team, I probably would go with you.
Why would you do that to me?
Just to make it worse.
I wish they were playing Ohio State.
Oh, if they were playing Ohio State, Kirby would be there decked out in Buckeyes. He'd have a Buckeye skull necklace or something like that around his neck.
To gloat over you as Indiana loses to a team that fired its coach.
God. I mean, it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, is going to join us over at the table here in just a little bit. I was talking to our friend Diana Rossini, Lucas, at The Athletic. Apparently she's got some kind of awful stomach bug that she's dealing with on day one of the Combine that has incapacitated her. She bailed on Titans radio this morning, apparently, so we'll see if Diana doesn't slink her way in. Rare to start the Combine off feeling bad rather than to finish the Combine off feeling bad. That is typically most people's experience. The phone lines are open if you would like to interact. What you like from what you heard from Ran Carthon on either the show or at the podium? What did you like from Brian Callahan? I did not get to be a part of his sidebar, Callahan's, Lucas, after he got off the podium, but it does sound like he talked about the backup quarterback situation in ways that has me feeling less and less optimistic about salvaging Malik Willis and the idea of bringing in a capable veteran backup to be behind Will as he continues to grow and develop and progress. At this point, I think the odds of that, that being one of the several reclamation possibilities on the Titans roster doesn't sound overwhelmingly great at this point.
Well, I feel like you want to have one of two things, right? Either the veteran starting quarterback that's established and proven with the younger something to prove backup, the way the Bengals have had with Joe Burrow and Jake Browning as his backup, or the young, inexperienced starting quarterback with the veteran backup for him to lean on, right? Like, how many teams around the NFL have the young, raw prospect at quarterback within the first 2 to 3 years of his career at starting quarterback and backup quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely. Titans head coach Brian Callahan sits down with us now at the Combine. What's happening?
What's going on?
Not much. Just trying not to embarrass ourselves more than we typically do at this event. It's just you know how Combine week goes.
I do. Yeah.
It's a little messy.
How
are
depends
you?
on where you're at.
So far so good.
Yeah, so far so good.
No trouble to report. Okay. How's the first month been?
Brian. Excuse me, Brian.
We're not doing this, Lucas. You're not going. That's only for the press conference.
I just want to make him feel at home back in Nashville.
How did you experience our little cat fight in the middle of your press conference the other day?
I thought it was great. It's good. It's good for morale.
Is it?
It keeps everybody
Whose morale?
Mine. No, it was good. It surprised me in the moment, but that's how it goes sometimes.
I promise we're more coachable than that. I've been trying to convince Rand of that for a year. I don't think he believes me.
What would give him that impression?
Oh God, just general day-to-day existence of us. What is the difference between the way that you kind of feel the coverage now that you're at the head coaching position, something that you've worked your entire career to this point? What do you feel that different level of scrutiny?
No, not really. I think we had a pretty good coverage in Cincinnati for a small market team. It was fair. It was critical when criticism was deserved, and I think that's how I felt so far. Is that it's been fair. The questions have been good. People are trying to do their due diligence, and I respect the fact that the guys in the media got a job to do, and part of my job is to answer questions and give you the best info I can give you without hurting our team, but giving you something that's worth talking about.
That's a very diplomatic way to describe how we, behave like vultures most of the time, but I appreciate that. So what has the first month been like? I imagine that your head is still spinning to an extent. It probably doesn't stop.
No, you know what? I don't feel that way. It's kind of strange to say this, but I've felt it's not felt overwhelming. It's not felt like there's too much. I felt prepared for it, and there's a lot of things that come across my desk over the course of a day, which obviously I expected. But for the most part, everything has been about what I thought it would be, and I don't know if that's good or bad. But I've not felt like there's been too much on my plate. I've not felt like there's too many decisions to get made. I've felt really comfortable with how we've gone about our process and the hiring process and the evaluation process. I'm excited about what we've done so far.
Are you getting to enjoy the city at all? Like, are you getting to? I know is your family still out of town at this point?
They're still in Cincinnati. They came in last weekend to look for houses. I've gotten out a little bit. I've been to Kane Prime, I think. I've been to good spot.
Okay.
Went to Pilato the other day. I've went out to have a couple meals here and there, but that's probably about the extent.
What are you scrolling Nashville Guru looking for the new restaurants?
I mean, I like a good restaurant. I like a good meal. So, I kind of leave that up. Leave it up to the recommendations for people to tell me where to go, but there's been some good ones.
Okay. Are you getting stopped and asked questions? Are you getting recognized at that level yet?
Not yet. I run pretty anonymously for the most part. Occasionally, I think somebody will recognize me and they'll say everyone's been super friendly and not very intrusive in it all. I mean, it's been good. I do like the fact that I'm relatively anonymous still for the most part. I do feel eyes on me occasionally when I'm somewhere, but
extra camera phone every once in a while.
That hasn't happened too much that I've noticed, but I'm also very aware that there's cameras everywhere when you go out, and I try to do my best to not be on a camera if I can. But no, the reception in the city's been great. People have been really friendly, and obviously it's great because I haven't called any plays yet, but it's been good. It's been fun.
Titans head coach Brian Callahan hanging out here with us at the Combine on 104.5 The Zone. So what I guess has been the ramp up for this, you've been participating in the draft meetings, obviously in the scouts meetings and things like that. That was something you mentioned at the podium that you have always been heavily involved in going back to your time at Cincinnati, and that it's helped you kind of, just for the audience that may not have heard it earlier, it's kind of helped give a more well-rounded perspective in your experience, having that level of participation.
No doubt. It's not like that everywhere. There's a lot of buildings where the coaches, they're given their list, they evaluate their list, and they may or may not even be asked their opinion on a player.
Does that happen to you?
That's happened. Yeah, it's happened before. It's just some places work that way, and it's not. I wouldn't say one's better or worse. It's just how they choose to operate. In Cincinnati, though, because we lack the size on the scouting staff, there's only about 4 or 5 scouts plus Duke, and they're phenomenal scouts, like fantastic scouts. But there's just not enough of them to cover all the bases, and so the coaches become heavily involved in the process, and we have a lot of input into the process, a lot of input in the selection of players. And for me, for the last 5 years, basically functioning as a scout from mid-February till April has opened a lot of perspective on that process for me, and different than what it was as a coach. I see it more from the evaluation side, the scouting side than maybe some guys do. And been out to pro days, involved in the draft room, listen to Duke talk. I mean, I hear every conversation that goes on about players and the process for 5 years there, and so it gives me a window into the other side that maybe not every coach gets a chance to have. And I feel really confident in my ability to, one, evaluate, and two, be of valued input in the process.
It feels like you guys have a similar decision coming up with picking seventh overall right now. We'll see what happens and who gets nosy about the pick, like Rand said.
Sure.
But a couple of years ago in Cincinnati, you guys had offensive line needs. You guys had wide receiver needs, similar to the situation with the Titans. And ultimately, Jamar Chase was the pick. Turned out pretty good player.
Yeah,
pretty good player.
Pretty good player.
Penei Sewell sitting there as well. What was kind of the dialogue for you guys as a staff? Because I imagine there's going to be similar discourse around the offensive line prospects and wide receivers in this draft.
One of the things I've always said when asked about this debate is I had landed at some point in my career, usually in Denver is usually what I liken back to when we had Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas, and Emmanuel Sanders. Obviously, we had a great quarterback that was at the end of his career, but those guys in one-on-one situations could win when you needed them to win in a tight moment at the end of a game, all those things. And so that's always resonated with me. And when we had a chance to pick a player like Jamar, I always just thought back to what that offense looked like, and that was sort of the vision of what we were trying to look like in Cincinnati with a elite quarterback, elite processor, to find guys that could go win and separate. And the debate was always, well, you got to protect the quarterback, obviously, or you can't throw the ball. And we didn't necessarily believe that. We felt like if you got great players on the perimeter, they can go win versus press coverage. And all the teams that are trying to condense everything and rush the passer, if you can win quick, you can throw quick. So that was our philosophy in that moment. Obviously, Jamar Chase coming out, premier player. There was no doubt that he was going to be an all-pro player. There was no doubt that Penei Sewell was going to be an all-pro style tackle. There was no question on either one of those players,
right.
Their talent level and how they would fit in the NFL. I think that's unique. I don't know that you're ever going to get in a spot where both of those guys
different year
are that caliber of player where there's going to be one that's going to be better than the other, and that sort of makes a decision for you at the end of the day. But I've always felt like today's offenses, I think you still have to protect the quarterback, but to score points, you got to have guys that can score points. And I've always felt that. I've always believed that. That doesn't mean that we're just going to automatically take a receiver.
You're giving people chest tightness,
yeah,
Brian.
No, that doesn't. I don't mean to say that. I'm just philosophically, I've always felt like the more talented receivers you have, the better chance you have to score points. But that being said, we are in year one here versus year three. We were in Cincinnati. We had a young Joe Burrow already played a year, and we were trying to give him as many weapons as we could. So I think the situations, while the position comparison is similar, I think the situations ultimately are pretty different. So how that shakes out, we'll see. But there's good receivers and good tackles that'll be available at our pick.
It sounds like, and even in this short discussion, that Denver was such a formative time for you in your coaching career. Whether it's connections that you've had with the staff or people influences that you've had because of the experiences there, both with players and staff. What was it about Denver that made that leave such a lasting impact on you?
I was fortunate to be there from the beginning to the end of that run. So I got to see it from going 4-12. My first year with Josh McDaniels, they got fired. John Fox comes in. We kind of go 8-8. We back our way in the playoffs. We play with Tim Tebow, and then all of a sudden we get Peyton Manning, who changes kind of the whole trajectory of the franchise for that period of time, and drafted some young talented players in Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker and Julius Thomas. Went to a Super Bowl in 2013, so saw what that looked like. Probably going to go down as one of the best offenses to ever statistically play the game. And there's some records there that are going to be really tough to break that we set that year. And that was really cool. Losing the Super Bowl was not really cool. That sucked. That was a really tough way to end a remarkable season. That was tough to swallow. We come back in 2014, really good again on offense. Added Emmanuel Sanders. Eric Decker left in free agency and played really good football and lost as the number one seed at home to Indianapolis that year. Really, then they changed coaches. I get to stay through Gary Kubiak. And then in 2015, invested a ton of resources into the defense and really won that Super Bowl in 2015 on the backs of that dynamic defense that was there. So got to see it all from start to finish. There was good, there was bad. There was remarkable wins. There was really fun offensive performances. But that was sort of my formative years in football. I was a young coach. A lot of the things that I learned there from Peyton, from the coaches that were there, are things that I think are still reign true, 15 years later now almost, since I got there. So very formative. A lot of things I believe in come from that upbringing and that way of doing business offensively. But it was a really impactful time in my coaching career.
You excited about Eric Bieniemy at your alma mater?
Absolutely. I love EB. I played for EB at UCLA.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so when he was there the first time, he was our running backs coach then, and so I've always enjoyed EB. He's a hell of a coach, and having him back there is pretty cool. I hope he does a great job. I always root for him. I always hope that he gets his shot here sooner than later.
Why do you think it's taken so long for him to get that shot? Because that feels like one of the biggest discussions that we've been having in the past couple of years, at least on our end for the loudmouths like me.
Hard to say. It's hard to say. These you just never know the fit, the timing. I just hope he gets a chance.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good football coach.
Have you had a chance to meet your outside linebacker Arden Key yet?
Not yet, but I was in Oakland when we drafted Arden in 2018.
Okay, so he's a. I think Arden has been on the radio show like 6 or 7 times. We do a regular bit with Arden. It's called High Key Low Key. And so we've decided, if you're up for it, we'll play a little High Key Low Key. You down?
Yeah, let's do it.
Lucas?
Jackson, hit the music. Coach Callahan, we call it high key, low key with Arden Key for obvious reasons. I was toying with calling it high C, low C because of the first letter in your last name. I don't know. That's terrible.
We spent 20 minutes on the phone trying to figure out what the hell to call this thing.
Far too long.
We said, all right, high key, low key, just do it.
Well, we'll jump right in. Coach Brian Callahan, you have yet to publicly comment on the fact that Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp stepped down from his position literally one day after you cited a quote of his in your introductory press conference.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts. Unexpected. No, I've always been a huge fan of his. I've read his book, and I just think he's got such a great feel for his personality. Is something that I've always admired, and how he's built those teams that he's been in charge of, and I always felt like I resonated with how he manages people. And I did not think he was going to retire the day after I quoted him in my opening press conference.
Not retire, just step down.
Step down. Didn't see that one coming. So yeah, no, I love him as a coach and a manager. I enjoy obviously some Premier League soccer, but didn't see him stepping down the day after.
the way Lucas's face lit up at your press conference when you dropped Jurgen Klopp. He's in your corner for the rest of the time here.
That's good to hear.
What do we got, Lucas?
Now, word on the street, Coach, is that you are a Formula One fan. So
yes.
If you could mold the Titans into an identity most similar to a Formula One team, what team would it be and why?
That's a great question. I mean, it's hard to not say Red Bull, right? I mean, I love Max Verstappen, and
okay.
I love him for the reasons that I love Peyton Manning and I love Joe Burrow and guys like that are just relentless competitors, man. And they don't miss. They don't give you any room to breathe. There's something that I really admire about his efficiency. It's surgical. There's something about that is really pretty cool, and I respect it. And I know not a lot of people like that.
Respect is not the word that I feel like most people use with Verstappen, in my experience anyway.
Sure, and I get that. But I would say I think here's what I see. I see a really young, dynamic McLaren team with two really cool drivers. The improvements that they made last year through the second half of the season, how competitive they became. I see the Titans in that mold. I see it as a young competitive team that's got some room to grow. And but when we get it right, I think we're going to be pretty damn good. And I think McLaren will be pretty good this year. It'll be fun to watch those battles.
2-minute warning, Lucas.
Last one for you, Coach. Now, maybe this has already happened yet, but I was going to ask you, what do you anticipate the first argument with your father Bill being as a part of your coaching staff, and would it be football related or not?
I don't see us having ultimately too many arguments. He's so good at what he does. I have such a respect for how he goes about it. There's not going to be too many moments, I don't think, that I'm going to question what he's doing. I don't think there's going to be too many moments where I'll be telling him what to do either. I think he's earned the right to do it his way, and he's fantastic at it. So
he knows what he's doing. Just put him in a spot and let him go.
Just let him go to work. I don't. It's hard to say. It'd probably be something. Something about my grandkids or something. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, I don't know. Him and I don't have a very, our relationship is not explosive in any way where we're back and forth. It's just not how we operate, and I'd be hard-pressed to find a moment where that would probably happen.
We should all hope to have such a good relationship with our fathers. All right, last one, Lucas. We got to let Brian Callahan get out of here.
All right, last one for you, Coach. Have you taken any poker advice from your quarterback, Will Levis?
No, unfortunately, I'm not a poker player. So, and that's not by design or by any means. I just never got into it and sort of passed me by. I think our quarterbacks coach, Bo Hardigree, though, is a fantastic poker player.
So maybe Levis gets some tips from him.
I think that there might be some quarterback room battles. I think the way I see it. But Levis's call at the Pro Bowl or Super Bowl week was pretty impressive. I don't know how he did that, but
me neither.
But it was impressive, and it seems like he's got a little knack for it.
Brian, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Continued success, and we're looking forward to seeing how all this plays out.
Same. Can't wait.
We will wrap up the first hour here at the Combine. Appreciate Brian Callahan. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great support system for guys who are dealing with erectile dysfunction. They've been treating ED and giving guys weight loss treatments that have changed lives for the last decade, and they are here to help you. A lot of dudes, about 50% of guys, in fact, deal with erectile dysfunction at some point in their life as they start to age. It's nothing to deny or freak out about, nothing to be ashamed about. You just want to make sure you get the best support system in place, and that is the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Their urologist-based practice with multiple providers has been focused on outcomes and treatments with the highest success rates. A lot of guys go in after pills and herbals have failed. They have multiple urologists and providers at 2 locations, downtown Nashville and Cool Springs, to take care of you. It's time to feel amazing and hit your goals this year. They understand at the Tennessee Men's Clinic it's so easy to get in for an appointment, and how the process goes, it's usually easy to book same or next day appointments, so make sure you check it out. Get treatment for ED knocked off the list early this year. They specialize in seeing guys who think they're out of luck where it comes to ED and want to be successful again. Call them at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today.
It is 10:57. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The NFL Scouting Combine happening this week in Indianapolis. The Tennessee Titans have met with the media. General Manager Ran Carthon at the podium earlier this morning was asked about running back Derrick Henry heading into free agency.
Oh, Derek and I had a good conversation on the way out, and he knows where we are and we know where he is. I think you guys that have been around, a year know that we don't really talk about, players' contract status in public. But we'll be well positioned to do whatever we need to do. However, when those conversations need to be had, we'll have them with Derek and his team.
Derrick Henry is certainly not the only free agent running back that will decorate the top of the market, as it's a star-studded free agent running back market. Adam Schefter reporting on Monday, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Austin Eckler will not be franchise tag. General Manager Ran Carthon and head coach Brian Callahan were on the Buck Rising Show in the 10 o'clock hour. You can watch both of those interviews up shortly on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube page, or go back and listen to the podcast. Around the NFL, the Bucs have cut outside linebacker Shaq Barrett. The 31-year-old is a two-time Pro Bowler and was instrumental in the Bucs' Super Bowl 55 victory. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Second hour underway. We told you we were going to have people stopping by all over the place, so we figured why not bring in one of our favorites. Corey Curtis, WKRN News 2, is where you can watch him on a regular basis. Sports Extra, of course, a great program, an informative program with him and Sam Mariah on WKRN. Lovely to see you, my friend.
And I'll be on today at 6, so I got to get this done and jump in the car.
Okay, well, then we will make this quick.
No,
615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Brian Callahan, Ran Carthon, good enough to sit down with us to start the first hour. The opening act for Corey Curtis, as a matter of
they're
fact.
warming the crowd up for me.
That's right. I was not over there for Callahan's sidebar. For people who don't know, they do podium availabilities with almost every coach and GM who are at this thing, and then they'll do sidebars for the locals so we can get a little extra one-on-one or at least a little more in-depth based on the beats that we cover. Brian Callahan's sidebar, it sounds like you asked him the same question that I did on the radio show about the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell decision that they made in Cincinnati, and I think you and I are on the same page, Corey. It sounds like they may take a damn wide receiver at 7.
Well, it started with Ran right off the bat. And that was at the podium.
Yeah.
Started talking about taking playmakers and guys who could score touchdowns. Didn't shy away from the questions about it. And when I don't know exactly what Brian told you, but he finished his answer to me over there by saying, if all things are evil, you're evil. If all things are equal,
don't tell them that. They don't know that yet.
I'm taking the guy who can score touchdowns.
Yeah.
And, I get it. And I always say I'm old. And I'm a Midwest guy, so I'm an offensive line, defensive line guy. And I remember when they did that, I was like, that is insane. I mean, Burrow's going to get killed, and he's been getting killed, but he also went to the Super Bowl. And I'm much more open to that idea now if the guy is an elite player. And Buck, I don't know how many years you've been here now. I am on year
9.
I'm on year 21.
Oh.
And
you might be old.
The years that I've seen elite receivers in two-tone blue are few and far between. And, I've seen a lot of good linemen. I have. Not in the last couple of years, but I've seen a lot of good linemen.
Oh, God, no.
But, outside of Derek Mason and A.J. Brown, I think they're the only two that fit that elite type player category.
No, I thought it was pretty funny. I think it was Kaharski asked Ran about the curse of wide receivers here. 25 years they haven't really had a wide receiver beyond Derek Mason and A.J. Brown that has fit that bill, and now we're talking about not just from a the first and second down tendency approach and things like that. We're talking about a completely different style of football that we think we're probably going to see.
It's exciting.
I am also excited by the proposition of it because, Corey, a lot of times I just hate watching them because like
what's
I know we're not allowed to allowed to let our personal opinions influence the team or the coverage that we provide, but it's hard for me.
Frustrating to watch them leave teams in the game because they're afraid to be aggressive with the football,
which is not something that you would have dinged the last coaching staff for necessarily.
But
off the
as
top
soon
of
as
your head.
I go back to the Texans game at Nissan.
Yeah.
When they go up 13-0?
Yeah.
And they tried to sit on that lead and beat Case Keenum. That's what they thought they could do. They could just sit on that lead. Case Keenum's not going to beat us, and they lost the freaking game.
It is what Corey Curtis, WKRN News 2, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're live at the Combine. You can see Corey on local TV, WKRN, tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Well, I hope so. Unless they're changing the time zone in Nashville. And I hate that Eastern time zone.
I don't love it for sports. It's going to make the 7 o'clock tip for IU basketball tonight very, very unpleasant for me.
You just have to stay up a little later to watch them lose. That's all.
But I'm going in person.
I got a really good Bobby Knight joke for you after the show.
Do you? If it's a Bobby Knight joke, it probably can't be told on air. From Rand's press conference in particular, though, not too far beyond the pale to imagine that he's more comfortable in this time around, that things are a little more at ease within the facility. Just generally based on what we know the last year was.
Position of power is stronger in enabling him to answer questions more. I think he's in a better position to feel good about, this is what I want to say, I'm going to say it. I don't have to check with somebody else so much.
How you could even put somebody in a position like that, though, in their first year.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's not something, and I told him, to be honest with him, like, and not just to gas him up because he's sitting here in front of me. Like, I legitimately respect the amount of grace that man handled it with. Because, Corey, you know me, beyond just to come on my radio show and call me evil, which, the vast majority of the people watching and listening absolutely agree with you, which is a fight that I'll pick another day. But I would not handle a situation like the one that man just went through with that kind of grace, not just internally, but externally, because the pot shots, people very, very comfortable taking shots at that man.
Well, yeah, and, we it was so funny because we're like, Diane Orsini's reporting this. It's from Vrabel.
Yeah.
Ian Rappaport's reporting this. It's from Carthon.
Yeah.
And we just knew that there was this PR war going on where they're releasing information and, they're trying to say everything is great. Everything is not great.
Not great.
It's not great. Look, I know there are coaches who run the show, and that's fine. But I am always
and some deserve it.
Yes, it's ones who've won the Super Bowl tend to deserve it.
Some
that have never been to the Super Bowl don't deserve it. But I'm a big believer in this, and this is not for football. This is for everything. You hire people and you let them do their jobs. And look, if you believe in Ran, you let him do the job, and if not, then you name Vrabel the GM and you say you're the GM. And they tried to do this hybrid thing. And
they botched it.
Well, and it's like I always say, when you go halfway, you never get to the finish line. And they tried to kind of go halfway, and it was a mess. But she recognized it quickly, which I give her credit for.
Truly. I mean, Lucas and I were talking about this, and Lucas, feel free to jump in. The idea that was probably the biggest misstep that Amy has had in terms of, not that you could blame her for trying to make it work, because I think many, many people have a level of respect for Mike Vrabel.
Absolutely.
How much that has changed.
He's a good football coach.
Yeah, he's wandering around up here, by the way.
You can body slam me.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any threatening texts yet. We'll see what it looks like by the end of the week.
Have you gotten a call swearing at you for 10 minutes yet? I got one of those once.
Yeah, but who among us? Who among us? What can you say? But the idea, and this was kind of something that I brought up with Lucas a couple of months ago, that the biggest misstep that she's probably made is not ripping the Band-Aid off sooner, but it's easier to do that, have that criticism in retrospect.
Well, yeah, I mean, there would have been another way to handle it, and that's to not placate him and say, no, you're going to coach the team and he's going to be the GM.
Yeah.
But she tried to make everybody happy.
Or enabled.
Yeah, and so that was a mistake. And, a big part of being a boss is understanding your mistakes and not letting them fester, and just not writing it out and say, well, maybe it'll get better. It's not that bad. She wants to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
She recognized what she had was not a good scenario, and Look, she had a lot of respect for Mike Vrabel. I think that's pretty clear. And we all agree he's a good football coach. But he's not in line with the way they want to advance as a football team. And so you have to make that tough decision, and that's what you get paid the big bucks to do.
And I think Corey Curtis hanging out here with us at the Combine, talking Titans with CC. The dynamic now is not all sunshine and roses and butterflies either.
Mm-hmm.
Like there has to be some level of friction. There has to be some level of disagreement.
Brian talked about that in depth in the breakdown, and he said you grow through conflict. He embraced the conflict in the room, in the argument. And I agree with him, because if you surround yourself with people who agree with you, they don't challenge you, they don't make you grow.
Yeah.
All right? When I've hired a lot of people in my sports departments over the years, and inevitably there are news people who always want to come and join the sports department. And I always feel bad for them because I'm like, I know you. I need somebody I don't know who can bring something new to the table and show me a new way to do things and have some new ideas. And so that's what he's talking about. I mean, look, Brian may say, I want a pass catcher and a guy who can score touchdowns above all. And, he can believe that in his heart. But if he's got three people telling him, yes, but this guy's a foundational piece on our offensive line, and we can get this guy in round 2, and he can still score touchdowns for you, maybe not 15, but 12. This is going to make us a better team. And if you can argue about that, and if there's a level of respect there, you'll listen. You may never fully agree, but you'll respect the decision when it comes down to it.
Your Bears are going to be the subject of much Combine discussion.
Why? I mean, take Caleb Williams and move on.
No, but for the purposes of the number 1 overall pick, the level.
It's so awesome that we traded away the number 1 pick just to get it right back because the Panthers are so putrid.
It is. It's funny to me because I know you live this miserable existence. And you're not the only one. There's many of you out there. I see Mays limping around NFL functions on a regular basis.
I was talking with Chad Brinker, who was with the Packers forever. I told him he asked me where I was from.
Did you say I hate you?
He asked me where I was from. I said Chicago, and he just looked at me. I said, "Yep."
Yeah.
We had a good discussion. He had a good Bears joke for me.
Did he say something to the effect of Aaron Rodgers does to your franchise on a regular basis? Which
no,
is like, I still own you.
He actually told me Mark Mosley, one of their front office people. When they
were
the
Bears front office.
No, Packers.
When
they had a defensive coordinator opening, a fan applied for the job and staked out like how good he was on Madden and everything.
Oh, that's right. I saw because Mark Murphy wrote him a letter back.
He wrote him a handwritten letter back, and at the bottom of the letter he wrote, "By the way, there's a team in Chicago that could probably use you."
But it shouldn't be as complicated as NFL teams can make it from time to time. Do you want Chicago to take Caleb Williams, and what would you do with Justin Fields?
Well, I'd trade him and get what I can for him.
What is he worth? Because this T. Higgins thing is interesting. I'm fascinated to see what Justin Fields ends up getting
here's the thing about Justin Fields is he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. So whoever's going to trade for him pretty much has to be willing to decide if – well, I guess they can give him 1 year to figure it out. But, I mean, you would think they'd want to give him an extension – when you sign him, so he's going to cost money.
Yeah.
I guess that's my point. Is it's like the T. Higgins deal. It's not just a draft pick or draft picks. It's money.
It's quarterback money in a salary cap market that is through the roof.
And so you're going to ask them to risk draft picks and money. And so I think that lowers the draft capital in some of it is the financial compensation that's coming to him. Look, if you can get a 2 and a 4, I think you move on and you're really, really, really happy. I mean, I'm not trying to get a 1. I'd love to get a 1, but I mean, you got to have multiple suitors for that. It sounds like Pittsburgh's interested. It sounds like Atlanta's interested. And why wouldn't they be? So here's the thing, though. I mean, like, I don't dislike Justin Fields, but it's not about disliking him. It's about Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. All right, you got to have a guy on that level. All right, you got to be there. Unless your team is stacked like the 49ers.
Yeah.
And then you can have Brock Purdy, who's not bad, but he's not those dudes.
Right.
And so you've got, do you want Ryan Tannehill or do you want Andrew Luck? Tannehill's fine, but you can get Andrew Luck. And so for the Bears, you've got Justin Fields who's coming along. And I don't know if you saw him in Chicago, but the guy's a freaking mountain.
Yeah.
He's as big as Derrick Henry. He's huge.
Yeah.
And he's super athletic. But Caleb Williams, the arm talent is off the freaking charts when you see the throw that guy makes. And I am just, you cannot dispute it. You can't. And so, yes, maybe Caleb Williams doesn't work out, but you have to take the shot at getting that dude. And that's the whole thing. Because without that dude, you're still looking up at Green Bay. You're still looking up at Detroit. They got to get that dude.
Saquon, Derek, Josh Jacobs, tons of running backs out there at free agency. Who do you think has the best market of the three of them? Because I think they're all three different scenarios, but I do think that the salary cap increase helps them feel more justified in taking a contract that just based on percentage of cap may look a little different than it did the last time around.
You're not including Austin Eckler.
Right.
You're not including DeAndre Swift.
Right.
You're not including Nick Chubb possibly being a cap casualty and being released out of Cleveland.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb is
I can't imagine.
awesome.
But
he's awesome. But I think Derek is the least marketable because he's the least versatile. I think for the right team, Derek is very valuable. But the number of teams Derek is valuable to isn't the same as the number of teams Saquon Barkley is
you could
valuable
maybe count
to.
them on one hand for Derek.
Yeah, maybe a couple fingers.
Yeah.
And that's not to take away from the brilliant player that he's been and can still be. He's just not like those other guys. And so Saquon can catch 60 passes a year. I mean, there's a lot of Christian McCaffrey and Saquon, just a little bit bigger and big stronger. And you know, we've all seen what Eckler can do. You know, he catches the ball really well. And Josh Jacobs, you know, a lot of tread's been taken off that tire the last couple of years. A lot of carries for him in Las Vegas. But again, are you going to spend a lot of money on Saquon? I mean, are you guys going to give $12 million, $15 million to Saquon?
If I'm Houston, hell yes.
Oh, but what if you can get DeAndre Swift for $8 million?
I'd rather have Saquon.
Man, did you watch DeAndre in Philly?
Yeah, but Philadelphia, the offensive line, it's more impressive because the offensive line group was not what Philly's had.
Oh, man, that dude can run. He's
I'm
fast.
not disputing it. I'm just saying if you gave me the
fast.
choice, like the couple of $1 million difference between Saquon
Well, but I'm saying,
and
what if it's
Swift to me
15
is
and 8?
not that big.
What if it's 15 and 8?
15 and 8 is double. So,
Yeah.
there's a different discussion to be had.
And
there.
I don't know what the numbers pan out to
Sure.
be. But, you know, that is the difference that big in those two players? And I don't know that it is. I mean, what has and I love Saquon, so don't get me wrong. But what has Saquon done to elevate the New York Giants?
Well, the one Daniel Jones year, bud.
The one Daniel Jones year.
The one Daniel Jones year, which
Okay.
is as nice a thing I could say about anybody who helped make
Yeah,
Daniel
I mean, he
Jones.
had a nice day at Nissan Stadium.
He did have a nice day at Nissan
He's
Stadium.
a good player. But there are other guys who've had nice days at Nissan Stadium.
And the health thing is always a question.
Yep.
It's an interesting discussion
It
with
is.
the running back.
I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't pay a ton of money for any of those guys.
No, I'm with you, especially when you can find it. Not to say that everybody can wander into a Tajay Spears, but that Tajay Spears is an easier lift, and it does feel like you can.
I mean, you got Pacheco in Kansas City. He's the 7th round pick.
I know.
I mean, we can look at these guys all. What was it? Eckler, a 4th rounder out of Arkansas?
No, he went not Arkansas. He played at some small school, I want to say.
4th.
Round pick. I don't remember what
Okay.
round, but I remember him being a smaller school prospect.
Okay,
but still.
But Alvin Kamara, 3rd or 4th round out of Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all over the place. And again, that's not to say that these guys aren't special, because they are. But the difference in what they do to your football team, is it that much?
You got to have two good ones, and it makes up for.
Yeah.
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 It's what makes Derek beating the odds this frequently so ridiculous.
Again, I will say, I thought Derek was fantastic this year on a terrible team.
Absolutely.
I thought he was great.
Corey Curtis, WKRN News 2, tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time is where you can see him. What are you guys talking about?
Samari's filing draft. I mean, combine reports. I'm deciding what I'm going to do. I'll either focus on their adoration for a wide receiver,
yes,
or their response to the never-ending Derrick Henry question.
The Derek question will not end. Certainly not this week. It's going to be.
No, it's not going to end until he signs with another team. I mean, because they're not saying. I mean, look, I think they're right. All right, you sit back and you wait, and if it works out where he can come back to you at a really reasonable number, you bring him back.
Oh, listen, I'm so for that, but a couple months, hell, it could be July before we start.
He's
going to
be
a
Raven.
discussion.
We all know it.
he should have been a Raven at the trade deadline, but that's a different discussion for another day. Appreciate you, CC.
All right, you guys have a good week.
When we come back, we'll continue to just talk about what the hottest topics are up here at Indianapolis. What is the free agent discussion, given that that is the first thing on the NFL schedule checklist? I'm Buck Rising, live at the Combine. Our Combine coverage, by the way, presented by these phenomenal people at Two Rivers Ford. They gave me a 2024 Explorer to whip up here to get up to Indianapolis. It is the best car dealership, award-winning customer service, 40 years, over 40 years of being in business. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Back here at the NFL Scouting Combine. Appreciate CC hanging out with us. We'll have more of our friends and damn near family members hanging out here with us throughout the course of the week. What are you doing back there, Lucas? Are you keeping yourself entertained? What's the vibe back in Nashville today?
Eating peanuts.
Am I interrupting you?
No, I'm just kicked back, legs up, having a great time.
Is this the easy? Is this basically a week of vacation for you? You just chained to the studio physically for 3 hours, but beyond that, you're not actually doing any work.
That's how you would put it.
That's how I'd do it if I was you. Absolutely. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in and get involved, we'd be happy to have you. What thoughts do you have coming out of your general manager and head coach's interviews, combine sessions, media availability, all these different things that you have heard them answer questions about today? We'd be happy to get into some of it with you. What questions do you have about combine prospects? I feel like we've been at least I've been trying to put off prospect talk as long as humanly possible, given that free agency is first, and I know that we're going to spend a considerable amount of time talking prospects, but certainly we can get into some of those if you would like to as well. The running back market discussion, though, that we were just having with Corey Curtis is going to be one of the more interesting storylines to emerge out of Indianapolis. Joe Shane, the Giants general manager, was up at the podium before Ran talked. I caught a little bit of that press conference. He was mentioning the idea that they did plan to meet with Saquon Barkley's representatives up here, but that it was just kind of, hey, we're keeping everything close to the vest. Ran Carthon on Derrick Henry saying, yeah, we're going to keep that in-house, but we're in a good spot with Derrick, and we'll basically a different version of roll the dice and let the board play out, basically. The more that I spend time listening to them talk and seeing the way that the market is coming together and all the different listed names on the running back at the running back position, I just can't help but think it doesn't make sense to try and, not that they would force or press the idea of bringing Derrick Henry back, but that fans should kind of get to a spot where they're not doing it either anymore. Does that make any sense?
I don't know that fans ever should have been in a spot where they were doing that, right? I mean, has there been a single sign that this marriage could continue? Based on what the Titans have said, on what Derrick himself has said about wanting to win a Super Bowl, wanting to test out free agency, vote of confidence in Tyjae Spears, the free agent running back market being what it is. I mean, it's really hard to read between the lines and come out with the conclusion that Derrick Henry back in Nashville seems likely to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly not on his end of things. Now, Derrick hasn't I don't think that I've seen any kind of Derrick comments here basically since his final press conference with us, right, beyond locker room cleanout day. I haven't seen him out there. There wasn't any Super Bowl availability. I don't know. He may have been in Vegas, but wasn't necessarily making the Old Spice rounds or whatever it is that he's typically selling. But it's all been pretty close to the vest, and none of it signaling. Oh, I guess he did the Bussin' with the Boys interview, right? He was on with Taylor and Will, and with that, yeah, the biggest commentary to come out of that is Derrick Henry wants to win a Super Bowl, and the Titans aren't the best place in the immediate for him to win the Super Bowl, to up his percentage chance of doing that.
And what's his market value going to look like? We talked about it with Joel Corey, right? I mean, do you want to devote, in Joel Corey's words, $20 million over 2 years to the running back position? I know the Titans have a ton of money, but is that a reason to sit there and say you can pour that into the running back position? Or is having all that cap space more of a reason to be able to devote it elsewhere and find value at the running back position when you already have your lead back in place?
In fact, Jackson, do we have that Joel Corey audio handy? I think that'd be good context for people that didn't catch that discussion on Friday's show. You can hear the full podcast or the full interview via the podcast if you'd like. But this was Joel Corey, former NFL agent, now doing work for CBS Sports. We'll get to it here in just a little bit, as a matter of fact. But the summary, Lucas summarized well. it gets complicated. And Brian Callahan was asked this at his podium availability, the value of a running back, and his answer, the running back hasn't necessarily been devalued, but teams are just doing it more by committee, lessening the burden on the running backs, lessening the workload, lessening the usage, and thereby making it less important to pay all of the money to one feature back in the way that, for example, the Titans have done or the Cowboys. I know each situation is different. But anyway, Joe Corey on the negotiating tactics that he would take as an agent for Derrick Henry.
I would be fairly confident, given where Henry has been, that he's not going to just fall off a cliff immediately, that you could probably get 2 good years out of him. I wouldn't want to commit to more than 2 good years with him, given how things work historically, and he'd be pushing 2,500 carries, although he's a physical freak and could be just the outlier that we haven't really seen before. But the average of the top 15 running backs last year, veteran contracts, was about $9.975 million per year. So maybe $20 million over 2 years would be fair if you can get somebody to pay that. And to me, he makes the most sense for a team which looks at him as a missing piece to get them over the hump. Maybe the Ravens, that were rumored to be trading for him last season, or maybe the Cowboys.
How would you go about the guaranteed money discussion if you were in a situation where you were negotiating on behalf of Derrick Henry? How would you approach the guaranteed money portion of that, of a 2-year, $20 million deal, hypothetically?
Yeah, well, I'd want the first year to be almost all signing bonus with minimal base salary or close to it, and then a partial guarantee in the second year where there's maybe $3 to $5 million guaranteed for injury upon signing, and then on the 3rd or 5th day of the 2025 league year, it becomes fully guaranteed, so that it's a 1-year deal for, let's say, $11 million. If Father Time just defeats him next year, which I'm not anticipating, and if he can still play, then you've got the 2-year deal. So he plays at 30 and 31, and you worry about what happens after that. If I'm a team, I don't want to sign him for more than 2 years. So the 2-year deal may be fair, because I think he's got at least 2 good years left in him.
I mean, I'd agree with that assessment. Derrick for sure has 2 good years left in him too. I'm not going to necessarily argue for great though. I mean, I'm comfortable saying that Derrick Henry had a great year last year, finishing in the rushing rankings the way that he did, despite being on. I mean, this is arguably the worst team that Derrick Henry has ever been on as a pro. Yes, we can safely say that, last year's Titans team.
Yeah, not arguable, right? I don't know how you would make an argument for any other season that Derrick Henry has been a member of the Titans.
Because he got here when, like, the year that they traded for DeMarco Murray. No, the year after they traded for DeMarco Murray. Either way, he was on competitive Titans teams his entire tenure here until the last 2 seasons. And even 2022 was a level of competitiveness that they just saw slide away after the 7-3 start. Derrick can be a great asset for a team that probably should have traded for him last year. We alluded to that with Corey Curtis earlier, the Baltimore Ravens. You guys remember me telling you that was the team that was most heavily sniffing around Derrick Henry. I would have loved to know what kind of compensation they were offering. Lucas, I don't know if you saw the clip that was making the rounds from Ari Myrov this week that said that ownership vetoed any potential Derrick Henry trade or Derrick Henry decision. What their reason for that, what their primary reason for that being, we don't know whether the compensation wasn't enough, whether Derrick means enough to this franchise, whether there's no other reason for fans to show up at Nissan Stadium. So, oh my God, don't get rid of the one reason that we do have, because we know we're not getting substantially better in the next couple of months. If that is in fact true, it's interesting. I'd be curious to know what Baltimore would have offered or what the Titans would have taken.
Now, was Ari reporting that, or was he kind of echoing the rumors that were floating around at the time? Because remember, we heard that in the moment. I mean, who had that report or that rumor that Derrick Henry trade was going to happen and Amy Adams-Strunk stepped in?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I feel like somebody pushed back on it. I want to say PK may have refuted that notion, but Myrov put it out there again yesterday as if it was a common knowledge, so maybe I shouldn't treat it as a report, but he was saying it definitively as if it was so.
He said, I do believe ownership stepped in to nix the trade.
Well, believing that is the
Right.
case and reporting that is the case are two different things. Again, I did not hear anything to that effect. So I guess we'll go off of maybe we'll discount that portion of it, but still, how they address the running back position. Did you hear Rand's line on Tajay Spears? We talked about it earlier to start the show that he's made it the right bleep.
Yes.
The running back, how they not substitute. What's the word that I'm looking for? Supplement the running back position with Tajay Spears. That's your lead back. That's your 3-down guy. That was something that was a selling point for them coming out of last year's draft press conferences. I remember they were trying to sell us on the idea of Tajay Spears. They're trying to sell the fan base on the idea of Tajay Spears. And I don't know that there's a Titan on this roster next year that has a higher Q rating than that running back.
That's probably what they got. I mean, early returns after a rookie year, but did Ran Carthon and company get anything right more than drafting Tajay Spears in the 3rd round, where the entire discussion around Spears was injury stuff and the Ian Rappaport report about the ACLs? That was every question Ran Carthon was fielding in that post-draft press conference was about injuries with Tajay Spears. Isn't that when we got the, hey, this is one of the biggest nights of their lives, of their careers thing from Ran? Was it questions about Tajay's injuries?
Yeah, you know what? As a matter of fact, that's right, and we all buried him for it. Absolutely,
Sure. But
because I honestly, to be honest, I felt that was a bit overly sensitive. But
Sure.
if that's the dude that he stood on the table for, and of course that's a position that he played and that he knows, then you can understand having a little bit of an emotional response.
And if Will Levis ends up being the franchise quarterback of the Titans for the next 10 years, then obviously Will Levis will have been the best thing to come out of the 2023 NFL draft. But as far as early returns and what we believe we know out of these prospects, it's hard not to give that right now to Tajay Spears.
I agree. 615-737-1045 is how you engage if you would like to. We are going to get into we'll talk more about Levis later on in the show. Some comments from the head coach and the GM about the quarterback position and the backup quarterback position, which is going to be critically important here. We'll do all of that live from the NFL Combine. If you guys want to jump in, why don't we start with Trey in Nashville up first.
Hey, what's going on, bud?
Yo.
I'm glad you made it up there. Hey, I just wanted to comment on what Coach said as far as y'all need to throw that little left tackle thing y'all got going on out in the drive. Just throw it out. He wants playmakers. He wants people that put up points, so that redirects back to if Brock is on the board, if a good premium wide receiver's on the board, that's who he's going to go after. And y'all have a good day and take care. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks for the call, Trey.
Put your seatbelt on.
Is that what it is, or is it a turn signal? What am I?
It's got to be the seatbelt.
Kirby refutes both of our notions here, saying that the door is simply open. Yeah, that the door is open.
Close your door, Trey.
You drive safe. You try not to read too much into it, right? Because it's a press conference. They're responding to the questions. They're obviously not going to give you their entire playbook, but it does seem like the messaging is very, very heavy on the idea of playmakers over and over and over again, that to the point where you would be fooled to ignore it.
It's Lion season.
Yeah, and this where do you think there is a greater percentage of lies told per capita, the NFL Combine or Capitol Hill on a regular basis? Because I feel like both are just soaked in dishonesty.
Just jumped out of my chair.
Kirby thinks it's Capitol Hill, but I guess that's only because we're getting ready to engage in another election cycle. I would argue for the Combine. Just per capita, the amount of lies told, the amount of media people lying, coaches lying, GMs lying. I think everybody.
No, straight up lies is always, the answer is always going to be Capitol Hill. Misdirection, the NFL Scouting Combine.
Subterfuge, some might say.
Because Brian Callahan, talking about the value of the wide receiver position, he has not told a single lie. No. He's talked about their discussion in the Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell debate. I liked what he said about winning early means getting the ball out early. None of those things are lies. They can be misdirection, but not necessarily lies.
How many lies are told, or more? Who tells the most lies? NFL Combine or Friday night in the club?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say Friday night in the club, but also Friday night in the club could be at the NFL Combine because there's plenty of people. Lucas, I told our buddy Robbie Bourne at Titans PR that I was going to Bloomington tonight, and he asked if I was going for bottle service or basketball.
Good stuff from Robbie.
I had to tell him both because my sister's 21, so I don't know what the night may hold. We'll see. Either way, we'll be back on the air at 10 a.m. in some form, or 11 a.m. I guess here, in some form or fashion. Coming up next, we are going to continue to give you the latest up here at the Combine. We'll take a look around the league. What are the hot button issues? We mentioned the running back market and some of the quarterback discussion with Corey Curtis, the Bears, who currently have the number 1 overall pick, and Justin Fields on their roster. What is the discussion right now? We'll tell you what that is coming up next.
Welcome back. It's the Buck Rising Show. Although I'm going to get tired of calling it that this week, Jackson, when Buck goes off and walks around and gets into a little scrums here and there. So when he feels fit, he will come back and do his own radio show. But in the meantime, what made you say, oh no, in sports this week?
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no.
Oh yeah!
615-737-1045 for you to give us what made you say, oh no, in sports this week. Maybe it's preemptive. Maybe it's something that's going to frustrate you about the dialogue that takes place over the next few days at the NFL Scouting Combine. Jackson, what is yours?
I'm going with Buck Rising as my oh no in sports this week. Failing to do his obligations on his own radio show. You know, he travels up to Indianapolis, his home state, land of the Hoosiers, land of cornfields, from sea to shining sea, and he just gets distracted and can't do his own radio show.
Buck Rising is basically doing a high school reunion every time he goes up to Indianapolis. You definitely strike me as someone that goes out of your way to go to your high school reunions to show everybody how well you're doing and how successful you are.
Well, yeah. That's the only reason to go to a high school reunion is to rub everybody else's nose in it. Eat it, you losers.
I disagree.
That's
I think
absolutely.
there is no reason to go to a high school reunion.
I did not go to my 5-year. I thought it was stupid that we were having a 5-year.
Ridiculous.
I went to my
5-year high school reunions are ridiculous.
Over the top. And by the way, I still see all these people, like not all of these people, but I'm still on like group texts with all these people. I'm going to a wedding with a bunch of them. So it's not like I have any burning desire to see them. But the ones that I don't see that need to know that I'm a smashing success by any measure, yes, I would like to stick the knife in and twist it a couple of times at a high school reunion. And then I'll leave afterwards. I don't need to stay. Once I've done that, then I can leave. But, I got to satisfy that part of me. You know how that works.
Oh, no, of the
What's
week,
yours?
5-year high school reunions. Mine is what took place after the Wake Forest-Duke game on Saturday. Now, this discussion has been had all over the place about court storming. Should we ban them? Should we not ban them? John Shire was at the podium after the game. At this point, we don't even need to play the audio. Everybody's probably heard John Shire talking about banning court stormings after John Filipowski was hurt on the court when a Wake Forest student. Did you see the Zapruder film zoomed in replay of the student running by Filipowski, and he's kind of taking a stride with his right leg and catches the student and then limps off, and now there's a bunch of conspiracies about what Duke is saying or isn't saying about his injury. It was a sprained ankle, and now it's a knee, and now it's just a sore knee. Have you been keeping up with this whole charade?
Oh, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? Well, because it went from the student intentionally or allegedly intentionally trying to injure Filipowski to Filipowski potentially tripping the student on purpose. I saw it take a complete 180 as things tend to do on the internet with the level of discourse. Yeah, so I'm intimately familiar.
Did I call him John Filipowski?
Yes.
Who is John Filipowski?
His cousin?
I'm obviously talking about Kyle Filipowski. I don't know how the name John popped into my head. Anyway.
It feels like it fits, though. Like, I would have gone along with it. I would have gone along with John.
But my oh no of the week is not just that Kyle Filipowski got injured during a court storming, because I don't really want to hear Duke's playing up the injury. Oh, he tried to trip the student. Like, you know what he gets to do when a bunch of Wake Forest students are running onto the court after upsetting Duke? He gets to trip the students. Like, he gets to take a longer stride than usual. He gets to do whatever he wants because that's his space, right? That court, the second after the buzzer goes off, is his space, not the Wake Forest students. So this idea that we're criticizing Filipowski because of the way he kind of took that step with his right leg and it kind of sort of looks like he tried to trip the kid, like, no, we're not going to do that. It's not on him. It's on the students that rushed the court. Now, Jermaine Burton turning around and literally punching a Tennessee student as she ran by him is a whole other thing. Obviously, he deserved a ton of criticism for that, criticism that he didn't really get. But my oh no of the week is mostly the laughable solutions to stopping court stormings, such as, arresting everybody, arresting all what? Like how many?
Isn't
kids?
that what Billis is saying on national television? Just arrest them all.
Just throw them in a van. Like how many Wake Forest students streamed onto the court? I mean, hundreds of kids.
So what is Billis alleging? Just take a bunch of saran wrap and trap them in there, allow them not to escape? Kirby seems to have a solution. What, Kirby?
Okay.
Well, no, I further in depth last night. They were discussing it, and I watched Killing Some Time. He had a great idea. You simply shut the gym, the players and everything go, and the kids that are on the court, they don't get to leave. And the cops come in and just single-handedly take each one of them, process them right out the door. He goes, and their theory is that stops the next day. But here's the thing. The media celebrates storming of the court, celebrates storming the field after a football game.
I'm the media.
No, occasionally, back in the day when that would happen, it was fantastic. It was always because of a great win or what have you. And it was, the passion and the stuff. I get all that. So now, because we've had two circumstances this summer or this season, the most recent one with the Duke, and then the young lady from Iowa who pushed an Ohio State fan to the ground, then flopped like LeBron James.
Caitlin Clark.
Yes. And I'm not taking anything away from her game, but she did pull up. She did go.
It's fair to call it a flop. It's fair.
She went LeBron on that.
It's fair.
But anyway, you've created the monster. Now you got to live with it. Let them storm the court and hit their GPAs.
Listen. As I get ready to make my return to Assembly Hall tonight for the first time,
we're storming.
No, we're not.
Win or lose, baby. We're storming. All five of us.
I'm watching that game
Kirby,
just to see Kirby.
you are.
That's fantastic.
It's going to be me in the stands holding up a Fire Mike Woodson sign. It's going to be Kirby in my banana suit that I've brought just in case I decide to bust
I'm not
it
wearing
out
your
again.
banana suit, dude.
You're going to wear the banana suit. If you go to this game, you're wearing the banana suit.
Kirby, if
We're
Indiana
storming.
beats Wisconsin tonight and I don't see you on the court the second after the buzzer goes off, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Dude, I am going to jail tonight being clubbed by some guy from Indiana with a stick. You guys may have to do the show tomorrow.
And then I'm taking them to bottle service at sports afterwards. We're going to have a big time. We're going to have a big time in Bloomington tonight. Lucas, you and Jackson may be responsible for the radio show. Kirby and I may just take a personal.
I'll call a cousin. He'll drive over from Columbus.
Oh, my goodness. That's what made us say, well, mine, I'll just make it brief. If you are not Cam Newton size, don't throw a punch at Cam Newton. You idiot. You're going to lose. You and 5 other people who are hanging off of him because he is 6'6", 250 pounds, and you can't even get his hat off of his head. The level of jealous, try-hard fool that thought that they would try and big bleep Cam Newton, Atlanta hero Cam Newton, and treat it sarcastically and start a fight at a 7-on-7 tournament is a level of loser, weirdo jealousy in sports that I will never understand. You're a dope. Don't do that. That's what made me say, oh no, this week. Our biggest takeaways from Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon's press conference. We talked about a few. We'll get to the rest of them in the noon hour. Already the final hour. That's next.
So Buck and Kirby are up in Indianapolis, obviously for the NFL scouting combine. And we were talking about how we were going to send the show, who we were going to send up there. And I said, I don't want to go to the NFL scouting combine. You know why? Because there's not a Hattie B's in Indianapolis. How am I supposed to get my Hattie B's all the way up in Indy? I'm going to stay right here in Nashville where I can visit any one of their 6 locations, the factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, and the Nashville Airport, because you only have 2 days left to take advantage of their February special with one of the new Wing Flock packs, 12 or 18 full jumbo wings. You can pick any of their 2 quart sides, the pimento mac and cheese, the baked beans, the collard greens. How hot can you go? Hot or not, you choose. You don't have to go all the way to shut the cluck up. You can get the mild. You can even get it without any spice whatsoever. The fried chicken is amazing in and of itself because Hattie B's is a family-run restaurant that serves up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. You know it's the best in town. They hand-bread their fried chicken, cook to order, and add your spice level. So again, hot or not, whatever works for you. From tenders, sandwich wings, or the half bird, if you're hungry, and then top it off with some banana pudding or peach cobbler. You want to skip the line? Download the Hattie B's app, order for pickup through the app, skip the line, walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, head back to the office. Check them out at HattieB.com and make Hattie B your lunch break today.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. It is NFL Scouting Combine Week in Indianapolis. In the running back position, a hot topic this week, as Adam Schefter reported yesterday, that Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Austin Eckler will not be franchise tagged. They will all hit the market, as will former, or not yet former, Titans running back Derrick Henry. Titans general manager Ran Carthon met with the media earlier today and was asked about the legendary Titans running back.
Oh, Derrick and I had a good conversation on the way out, and he knows where we are and we know where he is. I think you guys that have been around, a year know that we don't really talk about, players' contract status in public. But we'll be well positioned to do whatever we need to do. However, when those conversations need to be had, we'll have them with Derrick and his team.
Both Titans GM Ran Carthon and head coach Brian Callahan joined the Buck Rising Show live from Indy in the 10 o'clock hour. You can watch those interviews live on the Zone's YouTube page shortly or go back and listen to the podcast. Workouts will not begin until Thursday with defensive linemen and linebackers. Quarterback Drake May reportedly not going to throw at the Combine. Same goes for LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels and USC quarterback Caleb Williams. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour already. Where does the time go? Happy to have you guys here along for the ride. I'm up in Indy with Kirby Allen Kirby, of course, Lucas and Jackson back there holding down the fort in Nashville. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We'd be happy to have you at any point. What is the latest hot seat, hot board, what is it, a hot stove discussion that is coming out of the Indianapolis Scouting Combine? Everybody's really just arrived either last night or this morning, so the discussions and the rumors and the tampering that's not technically legal tampering yet, well, there, of course, is always tampering at the Combine. It's not really hit its full swing, but what will be the discussion points coming out of this year's Combine? It feels a little bit different this year, Bud, doesn't it? I mean, I know you're not up here to engage in as much of the TMZ high school hallway discussion as you were last year, but it feels like there's really not too many overwhelming storylines like Aaron Rodgers and potentially being traded to the Jets dominated everything last year. Derrick Henry trade rumors really picked up steam and momentum. It felt like at this time last year. There's nothing that feels quite on that scale this time around, does it?
Yeah, it feels like we're still waiting around on what that first quarterback domino is going to be, right? Is it the Bears trading Justin Fields? Is it Russell Wilson? Does he move away from Denver? I know Sean Payton said today that a decision about Russell Wilson's future with the Broncos will come within the next 2 weeks. So we're still kind of waiting around to see what that domino is and how many different teams it ripples out to.
Well, and it makes it an even more interesting discussion because Kirk Cousins is getting ready to be a free agent, right? He's probably the highest profile name at the quarterback position that is going to be available. We talked about Fields, who's still under contract, but Kirk's contract is coming to an end. He's coming off a right Achilles tear that I think happened in late October, so would be unlikely that he would be ready for the start of the season. I still think that he's going to be a hot commodity, and especially with the spike. I mean, we're talking about a situation where Kirk Cousins could be making $50 million a year coming off an ACL tear, or an Achilles tear. And what the ripple effects are of that. It feels like, and you know, those of you interacting in the chat, I'll have my iPad tomorrow with the chat up in front of me. I apologize not being able to read the comments. Maybe Lucas can, to the effect of what we're getting ready to discuss now. But T. Higgins getting franchise tagged. The Bengals brass are not speaking until like 3:30 or 4 Eastern time, so in the 2:30, about 2:30 local. So I'd be curious to hear what they say about the T. Higgins situation. But all the messaging around it sound like they very much intend for him to be a part of their offense in 2024. Titans fans immediately, it seems, have pivoted to, if we aren't going to get T. Higgins or aren't going to be able to trade for T. Higgins or aren't going to be able to acquire T. Higgins in free agency, how real is the idea that the Vikings might try to move Justin Jefferson? That seems to be at least the most amount of pivot that I've received on my end. Now, Twitter is not a real world, thank God, for a variety of different reasons, and so I don't know that that's the majority opinion that's out there, that immediately people's focus have shifted from T. Higgins, for example, to a guy like Justin Jefferson, rather than just letting the free agent market and the draft process play out the way that it will. But the Justin Jefferson discussion sounds like it's got some actual legs. Now, as Lucas brought up in the second hour, this is lying season. This is very much the NFL's lying season, so it could all just be gaslighting and nothing actually come to fruition. but Justin Jefferson being kind of out there and not receiving that mega payday just yet at least leaves the door open in a week like this for those conversations to start.
Agent Esta in the F&M Bank chat says the pivot should be to Michael Pittman Jr. off of T. Higgins.
Yeah, as opposed to, we talked about Hollywood Brown. We've mentioned a variety of different names that are out there. Tyler Boyd, for example, former Bengals wide receiver. What do you think? Can you look up for me, Lucas, just quickly, if you would, on Spot Track, what his Pittman's market valuation would be? I'd be fascinated to know what they have, like relative. My guess, adjusting for the new cap, I bet it's $22 million.
22
on an average.
Yeah, it's 22.7 according to
22.7.
Yeah,
and that's accounting for the new cap.
Yeah,
yeah. That's look up Hollywood, see if it's moved, because last we looked at it, it was about 14.5. And I bet he's closer to 20 now too. And again, these are just estimates. These aren't hard numbers. This is what they expect the market to be, and then what the market actually is. Nobody had Christian Kirk making $17 million a year a couple of years ago. What do we got on Hollywood?
It's got Hollywood's as a 4-year, $59.5 million deal.
Average annual salary of?
What's that math, Buck?
I can't do it.
Well, it's a great time for our Wi-Fi to go out, I'll tell you that. About 15.
So just an incremental increase.
14.8.
Okay, so that hasn't moved based on the cap valuations. Now maybe that's the new salary cap number. Maybe that's their position, that Michael Pittman was always a $22 million a year player. That's kind of surprising to me. We looked at his production. It's similar to T. Higgins, or it's not as far off of T. Higgins as you might imagine. And Higgins is not an elite wide receiver by any stretch of the imagination. That's Chase for the Bengals, and Michael Pittman wouldn't have to be the number one option in Tennessee if they were to sign him. I like the idea of them having a younger wide receiver under contract for an extended period of time as Hopkins gets ready to expire, alongside a draft pick, and Michael Pittman would fit a similar skill set to what it is that T. Higgins provides. If I'm Shane Steichen and I'm looking around at my wide receiver room, I would probably prioritize the idea of keeping him. I don't know what the discussions around the Colts media and the reporting around Michael Pittman specifically have been, but what does Indianapolis have? Jonathan Taylor, obviously, and Anthony Richardson. But what does the fourth Josh Downs, last year's draft pick at wide receiver? But what does Indy have beyond that?
Yeah, and with T. Higgins, how much do you have to ask yourself? How much of his success has been off the back of Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and having Joe Burrow as his quarterback and having the ingenuity and play calling with Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor? I mean, you look at T. Higgins and what he is as a prospect, but those are all major factors, whereas Michael Pittman Jr. has had to be wide receiver one when healthy in Indianapolis, essentially the whole time he's been there, with kind of a rotating door of quarterbacks.
And then the Jefferson domino that we brought up. There's a whole article on ESPN.com by Kevin Seifert, who's their ESPN Vikings reporter, kind of diagnosing why Justin Jefferson has yet to get that big payday. It's not like the Vikings are playing hardball, according to Seifert. Jefferson has no reluctance about playing in Minnesota, according to multiple sources. He did publicly endorse the return of Kirk Cousins, which is not a given by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly complicates things if you're trying to pay Justin Jefferson and pay Kirk Cousins, especially where the market will be for quarterbacks, even coming off an Achilles tear. I get is it just a level of impatience? Like, are we just at the point where people are getting antsy in free agency? I mean, we're 2 weeks away from free agency, 2.5 weeks away from free agency. People just want to know what they're getting ready to unwrap under the NFL's Christmas version of a Christmas tree. And what bright, shiny new presents might be available to them. I just think there's so many different options at wide receiver. It's not an overspend when you got $90 million in cap space, okay? And you're not spending all $90 million, and you really don't even have all $90 million in available cap space to spend. But if I'm them, and I'm looking around at the depth at every level of marketplace that they could potentially acquire talent, draft, free agency, and frankly, trade market. Maybe you do the thing that Miami did and that Vegas did, which is capitalize on teams with lacking in cap space, with elite talent at wide receiver, and you go out and you just scoop them because you got the space to work. Tyreek, this is what happens with the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. They weren't going to be able to pay him $30 million a year. They sent him to Miami. He got the deal. The Packers basically just kind of waited around too long on Aaron Rodgers, and Devontae Adams did that deal to go play with his former college teammate in Derek Carr, and the results of that seem to be, various levels of frustrating for him in particular. It seems like now he's in a better spot, but did ultimately get the bag in a way that the Packers either weren't going to be able to give it to him or had to wait around for Aaron Rodgers to make that financial decision and ultimately pulled the trigger on it. Stephon Diggs, I don't know that he's going to be back in Buffalo this year. You heard Ran Carthon, Lucas, I'm sure, as did the audience in the first hour, bring up the idea you want to make sure that you're prepared for cap casualties because Buffalo is sitting $41 million in the hole. How appealing is the idea of Stephon Diggs for a team like this? We can talk about that later, but first, it's my understanding that we have a pair of Preds tickets to give away. Now, we're not going to give them to you yet. Not yet. You're going to listen in the next segment to learn how you can win said pair of Preds tickets. Lucas, is there any additional information that they need about the pair of Preds tickets that they have the opportunity to win?
It'll be a pair of tickets to the March 23rd game, so about a month from now, as the Preds take on an old rival, the Detroit Red Wings. It'll be after the trade deadline, which is coming up next week. Be interesting to see what the Preds look like. They're red hot, coming off a 5-game win streak back home tonight against the Senators. But caller number 5, not now. We'll give you the cue to call in the next segment. We'll get a pair of tickets to see the Preds taking on the Red Wings at Bridgestone Arena March 23rd. And, of course, tickets are always available at NashvillePredators.com/tickets if you don't get in on the phones.
All right, 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll get into that and what we learned, our biggest takeaways from Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon's availability today. That's next.
Welcome back. It's the Buck Rising Show on 104.5 The Zone. Buck live in Indy with Kirby Allen Kirby. But for now, caller 5. Get a pair of tickets to see the Nashville Predators take on the Detroit Red Wings Saturday, March 23rd, 615-737-1045. It will be a Saturday in Smashville, taking on an old rival. 4 p.m. is the puck drop. So grab your friends and family. Join your Smashville family in gold. Help celebrate the 25th anniversary season and 25 years of Smashville. Tickets are available at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. But for now, 615-737-1045 and caller 5 will get a pair of tickets. Preds looking for their 6th straight win as they come back home, starting a homestand against the Ottawa Senators at Bridgestone Arena coming up tonight. So coming into today, we had Ran Carthon, Brian Callahan, join the show after their podium appearances with the media in hour 1. Brian Callahan has been asked a lot about the number 7 overall pick and asked to go back to that debate within the Cincinnati Bengals coaching staff and draft meeting rooms about Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell. Buck's back. Jackson, let's hear Brian Callahan talk about that debate.
You know, one of the things I've always said when asked about this debate is I had landed at some point in my career, usually in Denver is usually what I liken back to when we had Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas, and Emmanuel Sanders. Obviously, we had a great quarterback that was at the end of his career. But those guys in one-on-one situations could win when you needed them to win. In a tight moment at the end of a game, all those things. And so that's always resonated with me. And when we had a chance to pick a player like Jamar, I always just thought back to what that offense looked like. And that was sort of the vision of what we were trying to look like in Cincinnati with an elite quarterback, elite processor, to find guys that could go win and separate. And the debate was always, well, you got to protect the quarterback, obviously, or you can't throw the ball. And we didn't necessarily believe that. We felt like if you got great players on the perimeter, they can go win versus press coverage. And all the teams that are trying to condense everything and rush the passer, if you can win quick, you can throw quick. So that was our philosophy in that moment. Obviously, Jamar Chase coming out, premier player. There was no doubt that he was going to be an all-pro player. There was no doubt that Penei Sewell was going to be an all-pro style tackle. There was no question on either one of those players, their talent level and how they would fit in the NFL. I think that's unique. I don't know that you're ever going to get in a spot where both of those guys
different year
are that caliber of player where there's going to be one that's going to be better than the other, and that sort of makes a decision for you at the end of the day. But I've always felt like today's offenses, I think you still have to protect the quarterback, but to score points, you got to have guys that can score points. And I've always felt that. I've always believed that. That doesn't mean that we're just going to automatically take a receiver.
So that is Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, from our interview with him earlier, talking about the decision that potentially faces them at 7 and how similar it is to what they did a couple of years ago with the selection of Jamar Chase, 5th overall, instead of the tackle Penei Sewell out of Oregon, and the dividends that it paid out for them. Now, again, he mentioned that protection is still something that they were working on, and that in his introductory press conference, Lucas, he mentioned the idea of it being a holistic issue. Even here now, he's saying, or in the interview with us earlier, talking about the offensive line situation, it's not just that you have to get a tackle to protect the quarterback. The quarterback has to be capable of protecting himself using a variety of different tools that they give him in the offense, including just get rid of the ball faster. That's the nature of the sport. I think that that's probably the biggest takeaway of anything that we heard up here from either gentleman, and Ran, speaking to the effect of playmakers, the importance of playmakers as well. Love guys that score touchdowns, obviously, and there's been a notable absence of scoring in Nashville over the course of the last 2 seasons, especially coming off of that 2020 year where they were as good an offense as any that's played in that uniform since the franchise was moved to Tennessee. But the potential, if not reality, of a wide receiver at 7, I think becomes more and more real with the passing day. Now, obviously, we're up here because medical evaluations are first and foremost. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors are not participating. Neighbors is doing the interviews. Marvin Harrison Jr. is apparently continuing to train in Columbus as opposed to participating in any of this. And why would you if you're guaranteed to be a top 5, if not top 3 selection in this year's draft. Neighbors, it seems, has been reassured that he will be a top 10 selection as well, which makes all the sense in the world. So for Rome Odunze and the rest of the guys, not just the top flight talent, not just the first-round caliber talent, but wide receivers who will be found on day 2 and day 3 that can meaningfully contribute to an offense like this one, it becomes a very, very interesting discussion. Now, if Neighbors and Odunze are sitting there, both of them at 7, I would be surprised if that was the case. I'd be curious to see which one they would prefer. Though those aren't the same players, there are some similarities, and they're both top flight talent. But that's a pretty different skill set. It would be a different skill set that they would add to their wide receiver room, no matter whom they put in there. Because one, I'm not really sure what Treylon Burks does exactly for their wide receiver room. I know what Kyle Phillips is capable of doing, but that has yet to really manifest itself in meaningful ways. And Hopkins is as known of a commodity as any that exists in the NFL, even at a what football people would consider an advanced stage for a wide receiver at 32.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Every time Brian Callahan has been asked about this, it has been in the context of the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell debate, right?
Sure.
In that draft, Jamar Chase was the bona fide number 1 wide receiver in that draft class. He didn't even play a snap for LSU the season before. He opted out during the COVID season, and he was still wide receiver 1, despite the fact that Devontae Smith just went on a crazy run with Alabama and won the Heisman. I guess the question for the Titans will be, are Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze special enough talents to supersede that need at left tackle? Because if it was Marvin Harrison Jr. that we could fairly talk about as an option with that 7th pick, then I would be much more on that side of the aisle. But I think the red flags kind of go up when people hear how much Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon are talking about the wide receiver position. Jameson on the F&M Bank chat said they're talking too freely about it. He thinks it's all lies. No way they're showing their hand out of the gate. I just wonder if Odunze and Neighbors are special enough to supersede that massive need at left tackle.
I just don't think they're not. Do you think that they're speaking too freely? I mean, freely enough to make everybody perk up their radar and be like, all right, this is real, but not speaking too freely, as it's not like they're giving anything away. They're just saying, here, this would, if we did it, this would be the justification. There are plenty of ways to justify that decision, and here's how we've seen it pay dividends, whether it be in Denver, the way that you just heard Callahan cite that example, or in Cincinnati. I disagree with the idea that they're speaking too freely. I think they're just explaining their position on the questions that we're asking them.
Yeah, I mean, I think either way you look at it, it could benefit them, right? I mean, if you're talking about conversations happening in another team's meeting rooms where it could either be, the Titans are talking way too openly about the wide receiver spot. I think they're going to pick a wide receiver, or it could be the flip side of that where it's they're talking very openly about liking the wide receiver over offensive line option. I don't know. I think it's too good to be true. I bet they take a left tackle. Like, if you've got other people spinning in circles, like Titans fans seem to be, people are either thinking, all right, listen to what they're saying. Of course they're taking a wide receiver, and others are saying, listen to what they're saying. Of course they're not going to take a receiver. It's all misdirection. I guess it could play into their hands either way.
Did you hear what Carthon said about Dillard?
Yes.
Speaking of spinning in circles, if you want to talk about anything that those two said that gave Titans fans chest tightness or had them spinning in circles, it was not an outright. It was not that there was not an outright denouncement of Andre Dillard. I think is the thing that probably makes people the most nervous up here. His answer, and Lucas, I don't know if it's easy, or Jackson, I don't know if it's easy to pull from my Twitter timeline. Ran Carthon's answer about Bill Callahan. And I'm gonna talk to the Titans more about this. I'm really optimistic about the idea that they're going to let us talk to the assistant coaches on the Cosell podcast and the coordinators with them just to get more information for fans on these individuals' backgrounds, how it was that they came to be, how Bill Callahan became Bill Callahan, what the influences were, and all these different things. But Ran Carthon on Bill Callahan today I thought was funny because you can clearly tell that there is a level of awe and deference in that building to an offensive line coach that I just can't remember for another position coach.
It was a clinic and everyone left out of their minds blown. and coming to the realization that we still got a lot to learn, to come in and what it's going to take to play for him. But I think for a guy like that who's been such a strong developer, of talent at the O-line position, it gives us a little leeway, to bring some guys in and him having a plan on how to develop those guys and get them out on the field.
He opened that by saying, "I wish you guys could have seen it." And had we had more time with Ran, I would have liked a little more in-depth answer on that. Like, what exactly was it that blew you away? What was he showing you from a technical standpoint? What was he showing you about talent that you had on the roster that could be maximized better? And they're not going to take out the previous coaching staff or anything like that, but just to kind of flesh that answer out a little more. It does make you feel better about the idea that there are holistic solutions on the roster even, doesn't it? I mean, I know that we collectively look at the group of Titans offensive linemen and just go, bleh, bleh, right? It's just I mean, what, am I being dramatic? No, of course not.
Well, I do think a lot of Titans fans are making that jump immediately that, we got Bill, so we can get whoever. We can wait for day 3 to draft a left tackle. He'll fix him up, right? He'll coach him up. They'll be ready to go. But
God, I hope that's not the position of Titans fans.
We've heard that a lot from Titans fans, though. Like that is a reason to not have to take a left tackle with the 7th pick, because you have the best offensive line coach in the country, and he can do something with the guys on the roster. He can do something with
the idea of do something. Do something.
Who's the prospect out of Houston? That could be a day 2 prospect. The tackle prospect. We were talking about him the other day. But you can always play both sides of the coin, because Brian Callahan is also being asked things like that. And he says, elite talent is always important, but pairing elite talent with elite coaching can be something special. That's what he said earlier this morning. So just
Are you talking about Patrick Paul?
Patrick Paul, yes, thank you.
That we got a call about the other day?
Yes, Patrick Paul is what I'm talking about. Just wait. You can take a receiver at 7 and then draft Patrick Paul, and Bill will coach him up. But Brian Callahan's telling us elite talent with elite coaching turns into something special. So let's not make that jump so quickly like I think a lot of Titans fans are doing.
Sure. All this to say that the discussions here at the Combine are important. The level of, gospel that you have to take these guys at, I would not, don't go to too many extremes, right? Because as we've said time and time again, the biggest reason to keep your powder dry on any of this is that free agency has to come first. And so they will have a level of need addressed, whether that's center, whether that's edge, whether that's corner, whether that's wide receiver, far before the draft actually goes down, to the point where we'll be looking around and being like, all right, this becomes a much simpler equation for them in the draft process based on how they have or have not addressed all of the needs that they have. They have need at every position but kicker. Or rather, every position but punter. Kicker is also a need, right? The only thing, starting defensive tackle, starting quarterback, starting running back, and punter. Those are the only, irrefutable position groups on the roster. That's it. Everything else needs starting caliber talent. Everything else needs competent depth. You have lacked those things. That has been the biggest part of your depreciation. And I know I sound like I'm in reruns with this, but it's the truth. The biggest part of your depreciation year over year over year, where you keep watching these drafts under John Robinson from 2020 through 2022, it's left you barren across the board to where you're talking about maybe 5 or 6 players that matter here concretely, and everything else is basically up for grabs.
Well, you're going to have to compromise in some spots, right?
Sure. That's why I bring up the offensive line, Lucas, to that point, because it's not just about, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's not just about, all right, well, draft a day 3 left tackle and Callahan will figure it out. I kind of hope that they can do some of that with the players that exist on their roster, so they don't have to find, on top of a left tackle, a center, a right guard, and a right tackle, because all of those position groups are underwhelming. And if you can keep Brunskill or somebody like that to be a depth piece, then great. But they have so many different needs across the board that anything that they can get out of Radins or NPF would be a welcome solution as a part of this, because you just can't fix all of their problems in one offseason. It's impossible with the level of need that they have.
Or like at defensive back, where corner is obviously a huge need outside of Roger McCreary. It's completely barren. So because of that, will Amani Hooker and Elijah Molden have to be good enough at safety for the time being? I mean, I know you make that sound, but like, if you're talking about having to compromise in certain places, is that not one of the first spots that you look at?
Sure. The places where I anticipate the greatest level of compromise, all right, while they are going to be able to infuse their offensive line group with talent, I think there's going to be some level of compromise that people have to be prepared for there. Whatever starting position it is, you hope it's not center or left tackle. Those are the two most important, right?
Like maybe Brunskill does end up being your starting right guard in 2024.
It would make me sad, but I would understand it. Like I would make me sad because I like Daniel Brunskill fine. I think he's a good depth piece, but as a starting caliber player, he leaves quite a bit to be desired. And that he's accountable, that he's always available, and all these other things, and that he helps you kind of understand how it is that the offensive line is trying to go about their job. I really have a lot of respect for the person and the player that he is. But just like a coaching staff, you understand that those players have limitations. I think that it's possible that you see a couple of those guys who were starting for the worst offensive line group in football last year back as starters for no other reason than it has to be that level of compromise.
So where else is there compromise? Where else can you look
inside
at the roster?
Linebacker?
Well, who on the roster? I mean, Aziz is a free agent.
Yeah.
Tell me who else? Who else is on the roster right now
Well,
as
you've
an
got
inside
Chance
linebacker?
Campbell and Dr. Gibby.
Do you have Dr. Gibby?
You do have Dr. Gibby. I believe if he has any level of free agent standing, it would be as a restricted free agent. But we can double check that if you like. So you do have lower end guys, but like Chance Campbell is a former 6th-round pick who has done absolutely nothing here but get hurt, and that's not his fault. His body hasn't held up. But,
yeah, Gibbons is an exclusive rights free agent.
Yeah, so I figured that there was some level of first right of refusal that the Titans have. But, I mean, for example, they could entirely blow up their inside linebacker group. Edge, I don't feel great about their what they've got coming off the edge right now without Danico Autry there. Rashad Weaver is not a plus player at this point in his career. Arden Key, depend on the week where he's a plus player, if not a plus quote. That feels like the place where you would be willing to compromise the least, right? Wide receiver and edge feels like the place that you can afford to compromise the least. If you get the best possible group of front 5 or front 7 players to lessen the burden on the back end and try and patchwork that together, because you're talking about, I mean, there's one starting corner on that roster that you have any degree of confidence in right now as we get ready to approach the new league year and the contracts expire on March the 13th. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls if you got them. We'd be happy to have you before we update the polls and turn you over to Blaine and Mickey. That's coming up next. QC Kinetics has you covered if you are dealing with that nagging joint pain. They want to make sure that you don't waste another year not living your best life. You need to call QC Kinetics today because the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids and surgery, they're not your only options anymore. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. If you're dealing with knee pain, back problems, shoulder pain, issues from arthritis or injury, don't let that pain keep you from living your best life like I said. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. It's a revolutionary approach that can get you long-term relief with no downtime. Make 2024 the year you reclaim your mobility and your independence. Walk, run, play, and live without the danger and trauma of surgery and without harmful drugs. Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. All right. Last segment for us here on the first day of Combine coverage. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you missed Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, if you missed Ran Carthon, Titans GM, if you missed Corey Curtis, WKRN News 2, all those gentlemen kind enough to sit down with us. You can check out the podcast. You could rewatch the show on Zone TV. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, where I'm sure Lucas has diligently, since he's had a little bit of a lighter load, posted both of those interviews already, yes?
No. Jackson will as soon as the show's over.
Oh, so you're just completely outsourcing all of your responsibilities entirely, even though you are sitting not 5 feet from where Jackson sits and where you typically do that job.
I'm very busy over here.
Lots of peanuts.
Town for one day.
Kirby, you can't trust him. You just can't trust him. That's all it is. Well, at some point, Jackson. What did you say, Jackson?
Lots of peanuts to eat over there.
Lots of peanuts to eat over there. Well, good. I'm glad. I'm certain that he's not. It's probably look like a Texas Roadhouse in the studio. They're probably out just crunching them on the floor after the fact.
Do they still do that at Texas Roadhouse? Can you still just throw the peanut shells on the floor?
Lucas, when do you think the last time I've been in a Texas Roadhouse is?
I'd be shocked if you have ever been in a working man's restaurant like a Texas Roadhouse.
A working man's restaurant. Just made me cough.
Anywhere other than the Cane Primes of the world, just a look of disgust comes over Buck's face.
I love that Brian Callahan has been to Cane Prime. That's my favorite steakhouse in Nashville. Bourbon Steak gave it a run for its money, but the OG is still close to my heart. It made me like Brian Callahan even more. He's got good taste. When do you think last time Brian Callahan had been at Texas Roadhouse? Since it's the working man's steakhouse.
I don't know. I don't know how many Texas Roadhouses there are in Cincinnati.
Probably quite a few.
Probably. Seems like a Midwestern thing.
Indeed. So a couple of updates just while we're up here, while we're out here. So it's my understanding Mike Vrabel is at the Combine. I'd be curious to see if we couldn't snag him at some point. He's apparently speaking at a women in football event that is, this is a convention for all intents and purposes, so there's several different kinds of breakout meetings and things like that. So it's my understanding that he's speaking at this event. I'm going to see if I can't track him down at some point this week, because that would be a very interesting conversation, I believe. Other updates that we have, the Vikings general manager, whose name terrifies me, so I will not attempt to butcher his name, has said at the podium that they have zero plans to trade Justin Jefferson. So, it is lying season, and the Cardinals are tweeting out graphics of Kyler Murray being their guy, which means that inevitably they're going to take a quarterback the way that they did to Josh Rosen a couple of years ago. But just something to keep an eye on. The Raiders general manager is also saying that they have zero interest in trading Devontae Adams at this point. George Payton, the Broncos general manager, on trading Russell Wilson. I haven't heard anything from any teams. Are we surprised that there is not a single team that has called about Russell Wilson? His contract is hideous, which would make the most sense. And I don't know. I don't cover the Denver Broncos, and I didn't cover the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm not going to speak to the level of relationship that Russ may or may not have with his teammates, but he doesn't seem to be overwhelmingly the most beloved in either of those spots. That's a pretty curious thing that we're going to see play out. Jason Light, the Bucs GM, who said, "Trust me, we all want to keep Mike Evans in Tampa." So as that is ongoing as well, we'll keep an eye out. Before we do the polls, 615-737-1045 is the number. Alex in Nashville is next.
Hey, guys. Hey, Buck, touch on your point about so many needs, only 3 or 4 solidified positions. And kind of what we've heard the staff say, does that speak to the fact that whether we do or not, we need to trade back and pick up some extra picks or extra equity or players or whatever it is? And then I'd love to hear your point on that. And then the comments of speaking too freely about the wide receiver position, I think they're trying to change a narrative for an organization that has existed since the day they were the Titans, in a run-first organization looking for flashy receivers or top flight receivers second behind the run. So continuing to set that tone for your locker room, your city, free agents, drafts to make it an attractive place for wide receivers. I don't think there's anything wrong with how they're talking about places.
Oh. Well, that's an interesting point. I appreciate the call. The idea of kind of marketing it as a wide receiver friendly spot, because God knows that's not what this place has been. In fact, I would consider the Titans wide receiver position among the most cursed position groups for any individual franchise. Yep. Flat out. So I that's not an angle that I had considered.
And the irony, the pure irony of the reaction from majority of Titans fans, I feel like being, no, we need tackle, we need an offensive lineman, when for once in this franchise's history, it seems like wide receiver is truly being prioritized. The irony of that is not lost on me.
I get a kick of that. Let's squeeze one more call in before we do some polls. Steven is in Nashville next.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My question is, we're talking about spending all this money on the offense, getting firepower. Well, who are we going to have backing up Will Levis if he does happen to go down? Is the Malik Willis experiment, is it over? Or do we go after someone like Mason Rudolph or someone else?
Listen, with Malik, it's not over till it's over. So, Malik Willis is on the roster until he's not. I think that the percentage chance of him being on the roster by the end of training camp is slim to none. I would expect a veteran backup quarterback. I think ideally somebody who's played in the system. That list is longer than you might think, given the number of quarterbacks that have played in some form or fashion, if not for Brian Callahan, if not for the Bengals, in a similar system. That's my level of expectation. How they address it, well, you just have to wait about 10 to 15 days before we really get into the swing of things with the free agency discussion, with the legal tampering period, and with the available quarterback market. But I would err on the side, like I said, Malik's going to have a chance to compete. He could make progress. That's the less likely scenario, though. Polls, please.
Oh, yeah, baby. This poll update is shagadelic, baby. I have a Danger Powers here. I'm Austin Powers. Danger is my middle name, baby. This is one poll I'm interested in, baby. It's shagadelic. I haven't had an update in 2023 yet. Wink, wink. Oh, behave. Take it away, Lucas Panzica. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the most trusted Ford dealer in the South. Which prospect needs to have a good week at the Combine? Karen says Michael Penix Jr. Jay says Roma Dunze, the only top wide receiver doing the drills. And Thomas says McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback. The top 10 to 15 hype he's getting could be a little more real if he throws and runs well while others are sitting out.
Yeah, we'll probably roll that as a topic over to tomorrow. That's worth diving into. We'll do much more prospect talk. The prospect media availability will begin tomorrow morning before the show starts, so we'll have some insights and information to bring with us. McCarthy is going to be one of the more fascinating prospects to talk about here, especially with Jim Harbaugh, the new Chargers head coach, doing as much campaigning for him as he has been.
Which free agent running back will have the biggest market? 56% say Saquon, 28% say Henry, 16% say Josh Jacobs.
That feels right.
Should court storming be banned in college hoops? 65% are saying no, and those are the polls.
I agree. It should not be banned. That's the polls. This was the show. It was a fun show. I appreciate Kirby for making it happen. I appreciate Lucas and Jackson making it go. Check out the podcast. Blaine and Mickey got you covered. They're next.